Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody, Militia Man and Crew. Today is the 27th of October. It's Monday, getting ready for the Hallows Eve. I hope everybody's doing great. I know that I'm doing good. Winnie's here with us, so if you see her running around, just don't mind her, okay? Hey, the first article we're going to get to here shortly is going to be about the oil minister. Iraq has the potential to become a regional hub for energy and oil expertise. But first, we're going to give you a word from our sponsor, noblegoldinvestments.com. Noble Gold, Colin Plume, CEO and president of the company, has a lot to say about gold. I believe in it. It's great. And we're going to get into that later. But I think I'm going to have an interview with him on the 5th of next month. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys can all join me. Gold's gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere, and prices keep climbing. Every day, more and more Americans are catching on to the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Noble Gold specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, safe, and stress-free. You'll get a step-by-step guidance, transparency pricing, and US-based service from a team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. So as I stated, the oil minister. Oil Minister Hayyan Abdul Fani Asawad affirmed on Monday that Iraq possesses the capabilities to become a regional hub for energy and oil expertise. It's interesting they're talking about an oil hub. Really? Okay, the Port of Fa, I think everybody probably goes, yeah. So they're talking about it, and they're just saying it. The global oil industry is undergoing a fundamental transformation in light of the diversity of energy sources and the development of production and consumption technologies. So things are advancing. Iraq continues to work with confidence and a clear vision to develop its oil, gas resources, maximize their economic value in a way that serves its national interests. And you guys are going to see later that part of my work is that we take everything from patreon.com with Militia Man and Crew, Discord chat room. Everybody's welcome. Come on in. Low fee, $11.99. We appreciate it. All your help, support. So keep coming in. It says the ministry has taken a number of strategic measures to keep pace with these transformations, including developing major oil fields, increasing production efficiency using the latest operational and administrative technologies, accelerating associated gas investment programs to cover the needs of power plants, reducing dependence on imports, proceeding with refining, conversion, and petrochemical projects to enhance the added value of the produced barrel, supporting oil transportation projects, and expanding export outlets to enhance Iraq's flexibility in the face of global market fluctuations. He goes on and stresses that Iraq possesses one of the largest oil reserves in the world, no doubt, and there's a lot of unproven reserves that will be exposed in the future, and continues to work to exploit this national stock in an optimal manner that through integrated investment plans that ensure sustainable production, diversify partners, and expand the technical administrative base of the national companies. It goes on, talks about strategic partnerships with international companies. I think you guys have all seen some of the biggest names in the world involved in this. They're talking about the national capabilities, training, personnel, technical applications, etc. Iraq has a long history of oil. We know that it goes back over 100 years. So this is not anything new, but they're just getting more and more advanced as time goes, and more advanced as that infrastructure in Iraq gets built out again. War-torn countries, they got to start over, and eventually they do, and we're witnessing that they are. They talk about workshops and things like that, but ultimately, what's it getting down to? This article is not a new thing. Iraq has immense proven reserves and is becoming self-sufficient in gas and diesel production. That's going to be income that comes from the private sector, along with making headway with the non-flaring of gas for production at home and abroad for exports. Again, like I said, private sector. Iraq being a regional hub, highly likely to be a major player in global markets, which begets investment in private sector non-oil revenues, all of which supports a stable and sustainable exchange rate in the future. I would not be surprised to see them talk about having an increase over 100 billion reserves, significantly more than that, because of the nature of what's happened in this last year. In this year alone, they've increased a lot of different percentages of how much money they're getting for the reserves, and also they're getting self-sufficient. All that extra money that they're not spending to neighboring countries for gas, that's billions. Okay, so they could probably have stacked significantly more than they have told us yet, which will be effectively the more reserves they have, the more the ability they have to defend their real effective exchange rate, and that's going to be really powerful. This is another article. It's called "The Delegation from the JICA Visits Iraq's Ports to Enhance Cooperation and Support Development Projects." And we just saw a ribbon cutting for the Basra refinery from the same company just the other day by Al-Sudani. But he's like doubling down on this one. General Company for Iraqi Ports discussed with a delegation from Japan International Cooperation Agency, which is the JICA, headed by the Director of General's offices in the Middle East, strengthening joint cooperation ties, following up on development projects in the ports. Port of Fad down in Basra, all those in Qasr, right? The two sides discussed ways to expand areas of future partnership, especially in the areas of infrastructure, development and modernization of equipment and marine units, which would contribute to raising the efficiency of operational performance and logistical services in the ports. He goes on and adds that Iraq's ports welcomes all international initiatives that contribute to the development of the maritime transport sector, raising its efficiency, noting that cooperation with Japanese side represents a successful model for strategic partnerships in the field of port development and maritime services. Basically, this ties in with the synergy that takes place through the CYAN, Europe, and Asia oil trade. This suggests that Japan is going to be heavily involved in that trade. The recent and much more, but it's going to be part of it, yes. And remember, the euro is involved in the CYAN port oil relationship going to the European Union area, and that's part of the SDR basket. And then that's the IMF, and so is the yen. And so they're talking about these two currencies, which is going to be a backstop. They're going to provide income for Iraq, and that income is going to come from the private sector and the oil. Non-oil revenues. And so they're going to be able to pay salaries, they're going to be able to do a lot of things that I've already talked about. But ultimately the deal with the JICA in Basra showed just how involved Japan will be in a yen, and the yen will be involved, because they've been doing it for quite some time. So ultimately, with that relationship, it's going to help with, I believe, the AAD, Arab Accounting Dinar, which is AMF, been over it. Just so you know, they are a derivative, and they're exposed to the SDR basket, which has a significant component to it, is that a lot of currencies in the AMF can value their non-retail trade, for instance, to 3 times the SDR. So if you guys look that up, you'll get the same data I get when it comes to that. They publish it, I think, on a daily basis, 5 days a week anyway. Japan's not just funding. They're architecting the export backbone for the BIS readiness from the looks of it. Remember the nod from the Bank of England and Al-Alaq in that meeting? I think it was in September, possibly even September 25th. That was a big deal. That's important into our study, because the central bank of all central banks is the BIS. And Iraq's central bank is a central bank. So basically, what is it saying? pretty sure this is all looking very promising. So for Al-Sudani to be talking about the JICA more than once in a couple of days is very big. Here's an article from Al-Alaq, okay? And there's a lot of work that goes into this, and there's a lot of things that get tied in because certain articles, they tell you stuff, but the implications are broad, very broad. So I'm going to get into it because I've been working on a lot of things as I've been sharing with you guys, and I've been kind of, getting a little more advanced with some of the things that I'm talking to you about. And so I know probably some of the language you don't understand, but I'll do the best that I can to keep it simple. But it says Raffidain Bank has adopted the latest electronic payment technologies. Central Bank Governor Al-Alaq confirmed on Monday the Raffidain Bank has adopted the latest electronic payment technologies, praising the bank's role in supporting the economy and digital transformation. Al-Alaq, in a speech during Raffidain Bank's participation, represented by the Northern Region Delegation and the Financial Inclusion Department, in the second scientific conference of the College of the Administration and Economics at the University of Duhok, held under the slogan, "Towards a Sustainable Financial Environment through Empowering and Adopting Modern Electronic Payment Technologies and Promoting Financial Inclusion." That has to be one of the longest sentences I've read today. So, Raffidain's bank's position is solid as a well-established government bank with a long history of supporting the national economy and developing banking services. Appreciating that the bank's efforts in implementing the central bank's directions towards digital transformation and expanding the base of financial inclusion by adopting the latest electronic payment technologies. IMF, World Bank, and everybody's has always been talking about digital transformation for the last quite a few years, and they're also talking about financial inclusion because they want all the people to be inclusive. The Raffidain Bank delegation emphasized that this participation comes within the framework of the bank's commitment to supporting scientific and academic initiatives that contribute to financial inclusion, in addition to enabling young people to learn about the latest banking technologies and their practical applications. Through its various participations and development initiatives, Raffidain Bank continues its pioneering role in supporting digital transformation and enhancing the electronic payment system, contributing to sustainable economic development and realizing the objectives of the national financial policy led by the Central Bank of Iraq. All in terms, it sounds like a little bit of, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, Al-Alaq sure looks happy in the photograph if you look at him. Everybody in there, the tone looks great. So there must be something very promising about this article. And so I put a post into Patreon today, and then I had to go revisit it because I sat there as I was working, thinking to myself, I go, there's probably a little bit more to this, and I should probably go back and take a look at it. And so I dug a little deeper and plugged in some of the data that I have from Patreon to get what I have tonight. Okay. Al-Alaq basically has it's a nod to the Raffidain Bank. E-payments as a digital on-ramp, like this is getting started. Let's go. The Raffidain update was dated May 20th, 2025, so it's been a little while. But it recirculated in recent searches amid the Duhok conference era, and to me, it's a perfect fit. It underscores the CBI's push for banking modernization as a quiet engine behind the IMF and World Bank growth, because they talk about 346 billion GDP by 2030, a 6.7% in 2026. That's a tell sign right there, because that is a big move and that's a big play. The world's going to understand what they mean by that. If it's coming from the World Bank, which it did, that's their projection. IMF's a little bit different because they softball everything. They always talk about risks and they downplay, in my view. And maybe rightfully so. But anyway, it says Al-Alaq's praise, it's not fluff he's talking about. It's the operational glue, if you will, tying state-owned Raffidain, which is Iraq's largest bank, worth about 50 billion in assets, to the digital dinar pilots. That's what they're talking about out there these days. Al-Alaq set that stage back in February, talking about launching the digital dinar. Okay. And it talks about financial inclusion for 1.15 million jobs. 1.15 million new jobs. Al-Sudani talks about that. and the BIS integration via seamless e-transactions. Core of the article, Rafidane's tech lead. Technology is new, all these new technologies that we've been talking about. Al-Awlak's key statements in this, it says, during Rafidane's session at the Duhok University Second Scientific Conference, it's that long words and all that, but that's scientific conference, you guys. We'll leave it at that. Al-Awlak hailed the bank's adoption of the latest electronic payment technologies. He emphasizes Rafidane's solid position as a well-established government bank with a long history of supporting the national economy and developing banking services. So then they go on, but there's what they're doing. They're praising for reforms. They're giving praise for their reforms. Al-Awlak spotlighted Rafidane's alignment with the CBI directives on digital transformation and expanding financial inclusion, e.g., educating youth on banking tech to build a sustainable economic development base. If you're going to produce 1.15 million new jobs for the youth, obviously they're talking about sustainable economic development because they got people who are going to be around a long time. No times are specified, but the context ties to CBI's ongoing e-payment rollout, e.g. the cashless mandates for government payments since July of 2025. State institutions aren't using cash anymore. So talking about within the Rafidane as the flagship. Rafidane is a flagship for state banks. Implications of this, what are they? Rafidane's pivot slashes legacy friction. It means debt, e.g. 70% cash reliance now, but they're going to have a 30 to 40% change or reduction via the APIs for mobile wallets and tokenized transfers. It's a direct preparation for digital dinar interoperability. How does it fit? Fueling the 6.7% growth engine. That's what the World Bank talked about. This slots right into the IMF World Bank boldness. That's how bold that is. Non-oil GDP targets 5% by 2026. So from now until the end of the year, they're targeted at 5%, which is big. That's got a lot of people's attention. It really does. I mean, on an international level. Okay, what is 5% by 2026? It needs a digitized banks to capture the upside from Basra, which was, we just talked about the new refinery that's there, that they did the ribbon cutting, and then also the article today about the JICI. It's talking about 10.77 billion in tokenized potential and job creation. Rafidane's e-tech adoption is the how. Handling remittances, which is about 5 billion a year with small medium enterprise loans for Sudani's 1.15 million jobs without bottlenecks. Now think about all that income. You create 1.15 million jobs at a base salary and you're going to inject that into the economy because those people are going to take that money to the bank and they're going to go spend it. Food, everything, all of this necessities. So here goes on, it says the BIS integration tie-in. E-payments align with the Basel III standards, BIS's wheelhouse. Q4, quarter four, this quarter, bid, because we know that Al-Awlak went to the Bank of England, gets a boost as Rafidane demonstrates these modern compliance issues that they have. Not issues, but what they have to handle issues. Post-redenomination, they give an estimate. So if they drop the 3 zeros, which they've been talking about, then you add a real effective exchange rate, and we also talk about the AAD, the SDR, stabilizes via this system, preventing parallel gaps. That's the estimated. That they feel like that this is what's happening. That's what we feel. But we don't know 100% because we're not the Central Bank of Iraq, and we're not the U.S. Treasury, and we're not the U.S. Federal Reserve, the World Bank, or the BIS. But the indicators are suggesting that everyone's involved. And so what do they have? They talk about things like this, XRP, a technology. Because they talk about this because why? Because the SBI, which is the Japanese yen, swaps for JICA. They're talking about these things. RLUSD yields 4%. We've talked about that. On Rafidane held real-world assets. Remember the VAKT oil deal, Cyan port into the euro? You can't believe some of this stuff, you guys. It's fascinating. HBAR, Hedera, audits e-transfers. That's like the the accounting and the auditing side of things. E-signatures, okay? Do you remember Zane Cash? That's Hedera. JP Morgan's October 24th collateral green light question. Raffidane could pledge tokenized assets for liquidity. That's data that's out, okay? It's fascinating stuff. Okay, so basically, this sort of thesis of what I'm coming up with, Raffidane's the state level of IMF's $346 billion pathway for Q4 pilots turn it from solid to scalable. Means that it's not only just solid, but it's doable. Alalak's Duhawk Echo, that's that meeting he had when? October 22nd. Was that a redenomination tease? It could have been. Is there no coincidence? Reserves ticking 102 billion on e-payment inflows. I think that's going to rise. I think that they already have somewhere around 112 billion and maybe even more. But the more they have, the merrier it is. Basically, my data suggests Raffidane's playing it close to the chest these days because it's hush-hush. They don't give you all the details in that article that I just got through reading to you. But they have a lot of meaning, and that's what the central banks know this stuff. Okay, it tracks perfectly with the high-stakes restructuring and compliance crunch they're in, as Iraq's flagship state bank handling 40% of deposits and a chunk of the government payrolls. They're under the microscope from who? The Central Bank of Iraq, Ernst & Young, and even the Treasury watchdogs. So whispers are scarce and vetted tight. They have to be very quiet about the things that they're doing. They can give information, give you guidance, but they're not going to tell you exactly what they're doing. And they shouldn't, and they won't. There's not a whole lot of fresh chatter on the internet about this October, but ultimately Alalak, Raffidane, and this Dohuk meeting, there's some solid information that's coming out, but ultimately Alalak's e-payments praise is a good thing. Remember his wise policy. Remember al-Sudani's time frames. All of these take into consideration. And basically, to me, it's all feeds the BIS digital dinar runway. When I say the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, we have the Agora project, and you have central bank digital currencies, and they're going to be very, very hush-hush about that until they feel it's necessary to let it run. So anyway, recent Raffidane data from the CBI's supervisory meetings and the PMO updates. Here's the pulse of it. Mostly from August through September 2025, but recirculated in October financial briefs amid Sudanese reform push. So they haven't talked about a lot of this stuff, but it's relevant, but we've already heard about it. It's in Patreon. We know about the restructuring with EY, Ernst & Young, and K2 Integrity. Alalak chaired a CBI meeting in early August on Raffidane's overhaul, greenlighting a $10 to $15 million deal with K2 Integrity. It's a risk compliance firm for anti-money laundering and sanctions screening. This follows Ernst & Young's preliminary plan, which was reviewed by Sudani in January 2025, aiming to spin off Raffidane's first bank. Remember that? As a leaner entity with government stake down 24%. So instead of having 60, 50, or 60%, something to those effects, they've leaned it down and they shaved off for the government down to 24%. Therefore, the private sector is going to be involved. Isn't that what they were going to do? Restructure the bank? Ernst & Young? Yeah, I think they did. So it paid up capital is about 382 million, which is, as they say, scaling to 764 million. What's their goal? Basel III compliance and integrated platform status. Alalak called it a strategic step for financial sovereignty. Hush on timelines. But Q4 pilots are implied for digital ledger integration. Digital ledger, that's the new technology that they're going to be using for digital currencies. Debt settlement wins. It says by late July, Raffidane closed 87% of Iraq's external debt file, recovering 2.8 million from Paris Club lawsuits. There's an article out, I think they got another 49, 50 million today. So this might even be a low number. It says, e.g. 90% of concessions from the Dutch and French creditors via calm resolution, the Council of Ministers, number 403. This boosted sovereign ratings. Guess what it did? Moody's notched up Iraq to B2 stable in September. freeing up $500 million in liquidity for e-payment expansions, which ties into Al-Alaq, nod to the Bank of International Settlements. Rafidane's now the go-to for tokenized debt instruments. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. E-payments and inclusion ramp, echoing Al-Alaq's conference shout-out. Rafidane rolled out the 10th tranche of its, quote, entrepreneurship and excellent, end quote, loans in late July. 80 projects at 1 billion IQD each, totaling about 22.94 billion IQD, which is about 17.5 million for small and medium enterprise loans. But that's been funded since the launch. It says paired with the RIATA initiative, you remember that? Phase 2, 107 billion IQD for 8,000 SME contracts. It's all via digital channels. Zane Cash hooks in the lip for the unbanked youth because they've been using Zane Cash for a couple of years, which is effectively what we talked about. HBAR, Hedera. You guys got to look that up. I'm telling you, it's very important to know. Aligning with CBI's cashless mandate, there's no leaks on volumes, but insiders peg 20 to 30% uptake in Basra post FCC. That's that coking thing. JI at the port for gasoline, right? JICA. That's what it ties into. National bonds and Forex. February's 1.5 billion or 2 trillion IQD bond issuance for February and March window was a quiet success. So it's kind of a hush-hush thing with oversubscription from locals. In other words, they sold more, they had a lot of people wanting more. Okay, so now it's eyed for digital wrappers, or they call it wrappers. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but they're talking about Q4. March warnings from Rafidane and Rashid against using cards for crypto and Forex per CBI rules, but that's evolving post-June MasterCard tweaks. In other words, that was earlier on in the year, and then here in June, there's been some tweaks. They're testing Ripple ODL for yen-dollar swaps tied to the JICA repayments. Are there tight lips about this stuff? Absolutely. Expect that through November, U.S. sanctions, because of Representative Wilson, he had some accusations. Yeah, in January, they had accusations of Iran Houthi links. So they've basically lawyered up, but they suggest that the K2 situation onboarding is like a firewall. In other words, that probably not going to go anywhere. So there's no major October drops or anything like that about the Dohawk, but the CBI's November bulletin that's coming up could have more information. Rafidane is the silent backbone, and obviously they have been relatively quiet about it. This seals the deal for the IMF World Bank's 6.7 growth call. Rafidane's e-reforms capture the non-oil monies, that 1 to 2% uplift cash injection. Because why? From Sudanese 1.15 million jobs. That's where they're going to get that extra money infusion into the marketplace. It says, and that's also inclusive of Basra's exports of product, okay? They're talking, it's the state lever for Q4 integration. What have we been talking about? Integration into the global financial system. And obviously, it looks like it's a push, but they're obviously being very quiet. And if you remember how quiet they were when they did the last revaluation, they just all of a sudden popped it and said it's immediate. Effectively now, they do that. And that's very much, I would not be surprised if that's how they do this, because they're not going to tell us, oh yeah, we're going to do it next March, next February, we're going to do it in January, or we're going to do it after the elections. They're not going to tell you when, they're not going to tell me when, but based on real data, fundamentally, Patreon, use this information. You can get fabulous information from it, but it takes a little bit of research to do that. I do that. Rafidane's capacity is the feature. It's not a bug. It's not a bug in the system. It keeps the BIS hot in prepping the way to where? Global integration. Basically, my experience, I'm believing that if they drop a Q4 bond digitalization hint, in other words, digitized, watch out. That could be the spark that starts this. We shall see. Do not forget, Al-Alaq made the last revaluation again, 2023, under an immediate action. There was no warning, just bam, done. Enjoy the weekend, or the week, up until the weekend. Let's see what happens. I hope you like this conversation. It's an educated conversation, and that's what we have on Patreon. So look, if you like my content, please hit the like, subscribe, and don't forget, turn on your notifications so that you get notice of when I'm going to do my next video. It's kind of important for you if you're interested. If you really like my content, you should do that, and I'll get more information from that from you. But also keep in mind that your guys' donations really truly help us keep this channel going, and we do appreciate all of it, because it's a lot of work. If you guys really realize this is like a full-time job for me, and I already have one besides this. So yeah, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of experience. And I'm glad to do it, because I'm really big. Why do I talk about silver and gold sometimes? Because it's real money, it's real assets. The dinar is a real asset. I don't know if you guys realize it like that. I don't know if you do. I sure do. So that's why I believe in what I do. And enjoy. Have a great week. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.